Have you ever been told that you are stuck in the past? Do people assume that you're trying to hold back their ideas? Or have you ever wondered whether looking at the history of an idea can actually help determine its future success? The Bible has a more interesting perspective on this than you might think. This is episode 2 of a biblical look at every CliftonStrengths theme. Today, we're looking at context. Gallup describes someone high in the context theme as eager to look to the past, to understand the present and the future. They are a bit confused by the present. It's cluttered maybe to them, but the past is very methodical, and they use that understanding to better understand today. They have an intuition about them when it comes to turning today's slightly different version of the past into a more clear version of what the original plan was. They look at that original plan and they say, oh, yeah, this is what this means today. These kinds of people, according to Gallup, really enjoy looking at the past because it kind of sets a clear example of what the future should be based on. Now, they're not going to predict the future, and they're not going to correct mistakes, but it will give a good framework. And this is highly valuable because really what's happening is these people look back, they see the past, they see the original plan, and it kind of can help a group or even just a solo project, but especially in a group, find the firm footing yet again. Whenever you first come up with a plan, it feels very stable. Think of probably most of the group projects you've had. When the instructions are first given, it seems more or less clear what's going on and what's expected of you. But as you go further and further into that project, those instructions are further in the past, and as you've gotten further with what you are doing and what you're building, you might veer away from what you originally wanted to do. Somebody high in context would be able to kind of reel you back in a little bit, pull the group back to what the original plan was, and you can kind of course correct or update the original plan. Now, these people may or may not be good at predicting what's going to happen after they go back and check and bring everyone together. But that's for another day, for a different strength. Before we take a look at my favorite biblical example of the context theme, let's see how this trait shows up before we get to that example. After the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, were written, the relevance of that information was not just gone. It wasn't just, that's it, and here we go, and now we're moving on. It's a common theme throughout the Bible. It's constantly referenced back, and in fact, nearly every single book of the Bible directly references something from those 5 books, either in quote or in theme, and every book kind of gets there generically speaking. It's the thematic truth of the Bible. It's based on those 5 books. We can look first at Psalm chapter 78, verses 3 through 4. Here it says, "Things that we have heard and known that our fathers have told us, we will not hide them from their children, but tell to the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord and his might and the wonders that he has done." That's the importance of previous information, culture, history, plans, previous progress. That's the importance of that to the present, stated pretty plainly. In this psalm, it's talking about how the current generation is going to tell the next generation of the previous generation's successes and the way that the Lord was glorified in and by that previous generation. Now, this psalm is potentially in reference to a lot of things, but it makes me think about how after Exodus, all of the Israelites at that point, after their exile, are charged to remember and to pass down the stories to their children so that the plans and purposes of the Lord in those actions are never forgotten. This is what someone high in the context theme does. They take a look at the past and they say, I know what's going on here. I know what happened here, what the plan was here, and therefore I can remember that now and apply those lessons now. We can also look in the book of Hebrews. Hebrews 1, verse 1 and 2, right up in the beginning, says, "Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom also he created the world." This is the verse, one of many really, that modern Christians use to say, You interpret the Old Testament through the lens of the New Testament. Through the revelation of Jesus, we look back and understand the prophecies of Isaiah and many of the other prophets. This verse, these two verses at the beginning of Hebrews, are putting the Old and New Testament on equal footing. And that's exactly what someone high in the context theme would do. It's saying, hey, the past, the thing that we already know, the thing that's set very clearly, that is equivalent to now. And now we have new information, and that's just as valid, but it's just as valid. We look back to understand what's happening now, and we use what's happening now to better understand what happened back then. Sticking in the New Testament, we can look directly at Jesus and see the context theme very clearly. Look at the way he deals with the Pharisees. He constantly uses the phrase, "Have you not read the scriptures?" in some form or fashion. He's consistently appealing to the Pharisees' seemingly completely lacking ability to understand the prophecies of the previous prophets or the intentions of God in his various rulings, to see that Jesus is the Son of God. And by consistently calling this out, we can see him exemplifying the context trait. The Pharisees just won't look at the context. And Jesus says, look at the context. Look at the past. There's a plan here. And if you would see it, you would understand what's happening now so much better. Now, we know with Jesus and the Pharisees, they didn't like this very much. And the parallel here is that the context theme can sometimes create frustration with peers. Someone high in the context theme might even see an error in the original plan or a problem with the new version of the plan and be ready to call that out. They'll see it faster than everyone else. And the peers may not see it at all. Furthermore, an entire book of the Bible, an entire one of the Gospels, was written with this kind of thought process in mind. The book of Matthew is written to the Jewish audience at the time. Now, Matthew is writing the account of Jesus' life, like the other three Gospels, but he's writing it for Jews. He writes it in Greek, as we know, because that's kind of the global language at the time, but he references so much of the Old Testament, so much prophetic language. He checks in constantly with his reader to say things like, this was done, or this was said, or this whatever, this was done to fulfill. And then he continues with the example from the Old Testament. He even just starts with the genealogy of Christ. For the modern reader, that's easy to skim past. But why is it there? For the Jewish audience, this actually might have been astounding. Matthew's basically telling them, you can't understand Jesus without David, and you can't understand Jesus without David and Abraham. He was all the way back. By explicitly going all the way back to Abraham, first of all, Matthew just builds massive credibility, but he's showing the Jewish audience that Jesus fulfills two explicit points for being the Messiah, which is not a light thing. Someone high in the context theme would do this very naturally with whatever audience they're working with in whatever project they're working with. It's a very natural thing for them to look back and say, hey, in this plan that we made for whatever, our financial strategy this quarter, we said we were going to do this and this and this. And now here we're in the last 3 weeks of Q3 or whatever, and here's how we've done 2 of those things. We're fulfilling those goals, but we're not achieving this third thing. They'd be able to call that out and say that, and it would be maybe not astounding, but that would be notable to their audience, whether it's their team of accountants or the C-suite or the other engineers on their team or whoever it is. But being able to pull that past forward into the present can truly convey a message that sinks into your audience. And it's a strength. If you're high in context, you don't have to apologize for remembering the past or bringing those previous plans back to be remembered. It's honestly something that God wired you to do. See, believers are meant to be looking into the Old Testament to understand the New Testament, and they're meant to be looking at the New Testament to understand the Old Testament. It's all related. There's a reason why we make plans in life. It's so we can kind of have an idea of where to go and what to do. And so people that are strong at remembering those things and seeing their significance in the new kind of playground, that we're in today versus whenever it was originally planned, that can be invaluable. Now, you got to be careful because it can be dangerous too. Just like any kind of gift, it can be corrupted by sin. Pride, fear, anger, they can all pull it away from what it's meant to be and turn it into a angry attempt to win, or to override someone's opinion because you think yours is better. It can be dangerous. And what it's pulling it away from is what it's truly meant to be, a way to glorify God through consistency and a willingness to be humble. And really what Scripture is inviting us here is not to forget the past, obviously, and it's not to throw away old plans in favor of new ones every single time. But it's also not trying to tell us to don't invite new ideas or to reject new ideas. What the invitation of Scripture really is here is to take that ability to see the past and let it be shaped and molded and influenced by humility and love and ultimately Christ, who provides the context for everything that we do.